It's great to come back to Saskatchewan. I was so lucky just to be able to be part of the hockey here. And I'd always say to the guys on the bus, and I'd be kind of joking, but I'd be serious. I'd go, you know, when we'd be coming into Saskatchewan, I'd say, we should have a toll booth just like when you go into Banff where guys have to pay to come into Saskatchewan. And of course, all the Alberta guys and BC guys, they'd go, oh, yeah. But it's a gorgeous place, and it's great to come back here. Just talking about the Sask model a little bit, and I know with Ron and Jack, when they set it up when I was coaching in the Western League, it was, Jack would present this, and Ron and all the coaches and GMs would go, this is never going to work. It'll never work. Like, you know, the way it worked in BC and the way it works in Alberta, this just won't work. And it's so great to see that it does work. And the key is, it shouldn't be about the coaches or the general managers. It should be about the players and what's best for the players. And the Saskatchewan model is best for the players because I think there's some trust. And when there's no trust, you have to rush things. But I think there's some trust with the organizations, and I think it makes such a difference. And for coaches, I remember when I was talking about trust a little bit, when I was recruiting at U of C, and I would go over to Mount Royal, and there was a coach there, and I'd ask him about his players, and he'd tell me his players were the worst players in the world. They were so bad that nobody could ever play for me. And I'd go get his players, and they'd all want to come to play for me, all of them. And then a new coach came in there, and I'd talk to this coach, and this coach would tell me that every player in his team was going to be would be my best guy, and nobody wanted to leave his team. They all wanted to stay with him. And I just think if you treat the players right, it's like the Field of Dreams. If you treat them right, they'll come, and they'll play for you. So I think that's something I always remember when I recruited against this guy or that team is, if you treat players right, they'll be there for you. When I went to the World Juniors, we went in Petawawa, and we had a meeting with the Army base down there, and I got to go in, and there was we got to meet with all the top officials, and there was a general on the top floor, and I went in, and I went up to him, and he had a whole bunch of medals on. He didn't know he was a colonel at that time or a general. And I said, what do you do? And he said, I lead the hand-to-hand fighting guys. I'm kind of the Green Beret guy, the Navy SEAL guy for the Canadians. And I go, really? And I always thought, you know, the Army guys and hockey kind of have the same mindset. And I said, well, how can you tell guys that are going to be successful? How do you pick your soldiers? And he gave me 3 things. And he said the first is they have to have some level of talent. And that's the same with hockey. Nobody can play for you unless they have a level of talent. They've got to have some kind of level of talent. And I said, okay, what else? And he said the second thing is, he said, I have to have guys that never quit. That'll never quit. He said there's some guys will put a chokehold on them, and they'll be 30 seconds from passing out, and they'll be tapping me going, that's it, I'm done. And there's other guys that'll just choke right out. And he said, you want guys that'll never quit. And that's really true for hockey players. It's the same thing. When things get tough, that's when you need your guys, and you need those guys that won't quit. And the last thing was, you want guys that want to get better. Like, you know, I always talk about different guys. It doesn't matter where guys are at now. It's, do you want to get better? And what's in there. And I think that's important. I think it's the same for coaches. And the one guy, I always think about Mike Babcock. And the thing that always impressed me the most about Mike is that he always wanted to get better. He would ask all the time. Like, a lot of us, we think if we ask somebody, then it means we're not so good. You know, we're not that smart if we're having to ask. And Mike would ask. And $50 million later, that's pretty good. I think maybe we should ask a little bit more. He's done well with it. But I think it's a good thing. The other thing I think with coaching is leadership. And when it was at the same, down in this Petawawa again, we had this, we were out and we're doing a team building activity. And one thing we divided into 4 groups. And we had 3 activities. One was, we had a dummy soldier that was injured, and we had to carry him on a stretcher. And then we had a dog sled set up that you had to put the guy in the dog sled, and then they had 2 harnesses at the front. and you had to carry this guy, and you had to go quite a ways. It was probably a mile, and the snow was deep. It was probably 1.5 foot of snow, and you had to get through it. So set up, and then the third was just these boat things. But my group finished probably 20 minutes ahead of every other group, and it wasn't a race. It wasn't a race, so there was no competition in it. But I'm pretty analytical, and I'm trying to figure out, well, why did my group finish 20 minutes ahead of everybody else? And the key was in the dog sled part, because we were the fastest in the dog sled part. And I was like, well, why were we the fastest? And the one thing I learned, we were the fastest because the guy that went in the front of the harness, he ran. And when your leader runs, everybody else runs. You don't have any choice. If your leader runs, you have to run. So our group ran the whole mile through this snow. And I'm at the back, I'm just about dead. But he runs, so you got to follow. And, you know, and the reason our guy ran, and I think it is, because we were supposedly carrying an injured soldier, and the guy that was at the front of our dog sled was a doctor. Nobody else in the group cared if that guy died on the back of the sled or not, but this doctor, and he had passion, so it meant something to him. But every one of us is going to be the front guy in the dog sled this year. And you're the guy the team's going to depend on where you're going to go. And when you get there, you got to be ready to run. And if you run, everybody else will follow you. And the last thing that happened to me there was a part about communication. And this is where this presentation's going, is on communication and how important it is. And we had us in tunnels, and we were walking through these tunnels, and you had gas masks on, and it was all black, and you're crawling through, and they kept putting obstacles in there, and guys would trip over these obstacles, and people were falling down, and I'm sitting at the back and going, oh, why doesn't somebody just get together, hold hands, and say, hey, chair, 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 all the way down the line, and then not every one of us has to trip on that thing. And so I'm mad and can't figure out why these guys in front of me don't smarten up and do this. But when I got out and I thought about it, it's like communication isn't just one way. It's not just them going back. If I would have said something at the back, then we would have done it. So it has to be two ways, and you have to open it up for your players so there's communication going both ways. When I came into Vancouver, I was used to working with a small staff, like 3 or 4 people. And I get to Vancouver, and there must be 25 people I have to deal with on different bases. And all of a sudden, communication becomes way more important. It's not just you figuring out what you want to do to the day. You have to communicate it to everybody else. So this presentation is a way for us to communicate with our players. And it's not the only way. You have to have more direct contact. You can't just go through the technology. But the thing with Mark, and as I want to go through how, you know, we can do it at the NHL level, and Mark shows how you can do it at an amateur level, basically the same thing, how it can work. And what we started with is we have a daily log, and the first thing, if you can see this, Derek Dorsett's daily log. And it's just like the movie You Got Mail. You know, when guys have new things in, it'll pop up, they'll see it, they know they have mail. And we'll start with the daily question, and for us, it's to try to get guys to know a little bit more about their teammates. So we'll put a question in there, and guys will have to figure out about their teammates, who we're talking about, just to try to get guys more familiar. And I think that's really important. I know Mike Johnson does it with Pittsburgh, but I think it's an important thing. So that's how we'll start. Different question in there every day. And we'll just bring it up at our team meetings. We'll ask about it. And then we'll have some kind of a motivational clip. And the first clip I have, it's Bill Belichick, and he's talking about the Patriots, and it's just a clip. So I'd show this clip, the guys would watch it, and then we'd talk about it.
And you've seen when we're playing with energy, when we're playing with emotion, and when we're not. Nice play, Ty. Can't even see one guy saying, good hit. Walk back to the huddle, and God, it looks like we don't even care. We aren't good enough to play that way. I don't know that anybody is. Gary, you know it's a good play. Just doesn't really register with anybody else. Just look at this right here. Do you think we were ready to play against Denver last year, Monday night? It's so obvious. It's so visible. And when you can show that picture visually to your opponent, that's what intimidation is. That's the look right there, fellas. It'll be a long night. Let's show the Buffalo Bills that this is a football team. It's not a bunch of guys running around out there in the same jersey. This is a football team. And for 60 minutes, you're going to have to deal with all of us, and it's going to be a long.
So we'd start with that. We'd show that, and then we could just, you know, when we'd have meetings, we'd go in to show things, we would talk about that. Not necessarily, but I'd probably ask one of the players, well, what did you think of the video? You know, anything stand out or whatever. So it'd be a way of having something, and it would give us something to talk about. And then in each player after a game, they would have, I'll just go down to the scoring chances. So in their log, they'd have, whenever they were on the ice and we had a scoring chance, it would pop up. So if this is Dorsett's, it's in the playoffs. I think the first ones are chances against. So we would go through that and talk about it. And then we'd have, you can see we have chances for. So he'd go through his chances for. And then there's a comment after, positive area of improvement. So we'd have in there, the question of the day would be, maybe list a couple of things you did well, maybe one thing you think you need to work on in that game. Or it might be, list a couple of things your line mates did well or your line did well. One thing, you know, you guys can do better, or it might be a team one. But somewhere along the line would be that question. And we're not going to I'm not going to have them send me anything back. When we're in the video, I'll just talk to them. I'll pick out a guy and I'll just ask him a question and he'll give us the answer. So it's trying to find guys to be a little bit more responsible themselves for it, rather than us always giving them the information and trying to get them to get to that point. So we'll do that. The second thing we'll have is, out of that, we'll pick up some skills that they have to work on. So our skill coach, we have a video, a little bit of a library of skills, and we'll have, okay, today we want them just do a catch and release. So this video will be in there, pop up for him, give him the things to look for, and he'll know when he goes out to start practice, he can just work on this stuff himself. So it's quick, but he knows. He can go through it himself, just take a look at it. And there's a list, like, you know, if I show our library, we got a library of all this stuff down there. So there's lots of skills that we can pick from and guys can work and look at. The next thing we'll talk about, maybe he'll have on there some kind of a mental training thing. And it won't be new every day. It'll be a weekly log, and it'll be a mental training part. And this one, it's just on visualization. So they'll be talking about first person or third person imagery. What do you do? How do you do it? And he'll go through it, and then at the back there'll be a little bit of a questionnaire on this one. Again, we won't get it, but it's things for him to look at. Can you do this? How can you do it? Is it part of your plans? So he's kind of responsible to take a look at it and figure it out and go through it.
Willie?
Yeah.
Is this a program that he accesses through the device?
No, yeah, everybody has their own, and Mark has it called as a locker. It's his own locker. So it's their own thing. So each guy only has, you can't look in the other guy's locker. It's his own. So he'll come in, his password, just like I had mine. I have to put my password in, I get in it, and I get to look and see what's in there. Then we'll have the conditioning part too. That'll be laid out. This is what you can do. So it's laid out there for him. It'll show the different exercises. It's real good in the summer. Like we can control it in the summer. You know, you'll have his workout laid out. We'll put it up. There's the exercise. You know, this is what you got to do. So it's an easy thing to have and to kind of go through. Then depending on the player, we may have the pre-scout. So, you know, Derek's part of the penalty kill. So here's our pre-scout. We'll put it up, you know, we're playing Calgary. Here's Calgary's power play. This is what we got to look for. And so he'll get to look at it ahead of time if he wants to look at it. So it gives him a way of accessing everything himself to go through it. A couple things we didn't put on just to talk about is a schedule. Like with Mark's program, you can have a schedule in there, which I think is really important. For us, we put a schedule in. As soon as they come in, there's a schedule up on the wall. If we put it in here and change, players aren't big on changing schedules. Like they want to know what it is. They don't want any changes once it's there. So we don't put it in the daily log. We just put it in once they get in. The second thing is practice. We could put practice in as well, but we don't. We usually go through it in the morning and it's posted. So once they come in, it's already posted. They'll see it, but it's already posted. And then we'll do a kind of a player performance one. And I haven't decided if I'm going to put this in this year or not. We're just going to start to use this year. And this one's pretty hard to read. But what it says, it'll give the player's name, and then it'll say scoring chance primary, scoring chance secondary. Those are all 5-on-5s. Then power play scoring chance, penalty killing scoring chance, number of hits, penalties you drew, block shots, takeaways, and then it'll give a total. So all the players will go through that, we'll total it up, and it'll be there. And we'll do the same thing with the negative side. And then we'll just do the plus minus and find out which guys are kind of ahead. So it's hard sometimes, like if you give that feedback, then guys are going to come and talk to you and they'll argue over, well, why have I got this point or why didn't I have that point? And so sometimes you don't know how much you want to give it to them. But I think guys want feedback. They want to know where they're standing. I think Dave talked about it, like where are they standing with you? They want that information. And so I think it's something that we're looking at putting in, and guys can go through it and take a look at it. And then the last one is the human performance data, and it's the same thing. Human performance data, it'll talk about how their sleep levels, their fatigue levels, you know, different levels when we do our testing. So those are the kind of things that we can do on a daily basis to kind of communicate with our team and keep everybody on track. And I feel that if we do that and we do a good job at it, I think we're going to be way better. I think it just gives us a means of letting guys that are, and not everybody's going to come in and watch that. That's going to be the key. Like, there's going to some guys, and I don't know who talked. I think it was Dave talked in the morning. Some guys will want to watch. You talk about auto and doing like. Some guys will want to watch the video. Some won't. But their scoring chances, I'll ask questions. I'll make sure guys have watched that. You know, and we have to be careful too how much we have in there, because if we have too much information in there, they won't go through it all. But I want to create, and it's about creating a culture, but I want to create a culture in Vancouver where guys are responsible for getting better, where they take ownership on getting better. And I think this is a way to do it. And I don't know exactly how it's going to work, but I know there's parts of it that we're gonna go through and do. And this is the last video. And sheep are the dumbest animals ever. And you watch how they walk, and And it's kind of like, what's this video in here for? But it's, can you make, the video question I have, can you ever get a sheep to act like a dog? Could you train a sheep to act like a dog? How would you do it? Maybe, you know, if you reward the right behavior or whatever, is probably a way of maybe getting it done. And so there's your sheep. Now, this sheep acts like a dog. Totally acts like a dog. If you watch the way it moves, it'll put its head down, it'll kind of try to wag its tail. It doesn't act like a sheep. It's pretty amazing, really. And it shows me a couple things. The reason that sheep acts that way is because its mother died, so it got raised by a border collie with the pups. So it thinks it's a dog. Grew up thinking it's a dog, it acts like a dog. And I think for a lot of the players, us, the coaches, are their role model. They'll see what we do, how we handle pressure, how we handle big games, good times, bad times. And they'll learn from us. And they will take on some of the things we believe. So I think it's important how we act. The other thing, I think it's huge for a player, because I think you can become whatever you want. Like, you don't have to be a sheep. If you don't want to be a sheep, you don't have to be a sheep. You can change, you can become something different. And so I think it's a good video. And I showed our players that video. I showed the Belichick video. We've watched the Belichick video. We watched the sheep video. And I just think it shows the importance of the role model. So I think a lot of times you learn the best from watching people and seeing why they're successful. And when I look at Gully, when I watch him coach or work with him, he's not good by an accident. He focuses. He's really thorough. He works hard. He's great on systems. He goes through the game, and he's always working at it. He's always working, and he's always thinking about how to get better, what are we going to do, and he does such a good job in a lot of different areas, and it just makes such a difference. And I'll tell you, if you're talking about Dip, he's definitely one of the best coaches in the NHL. Like, I don't know how he does it all the time. Like, we struggle every time we play him. We struggle, and I always talk to Verbata. I go, Verby, what's he doing? Why is this working? And so Verby would always go through and talk about it. But it was interesting. I don't think I've looked at another team's bench for 2 years. And we were playing Phoenix, and one of our guys got Ekman Larson right up by the blue line. And it was about 2 seconds left in the period. And right away, Tip had a tough line out there. and I looked down there, and the good thing is Tip doesn't even know I looked down there. And I looked down there for quite a while to try to see, like, what are you doing? I don't have a tough team. But he doesn't care what I do. He had no concern about what I thought about that or anything. He's just managing his team. That's the only thing he was concerned about, is his team, and he was taking care of his guys, and Ekman Larson knows he's going to be taken care of. And I think it's a good lesson. Don't worry about the other team. Don't worry what the other guy's doing. Just do your team. And he was interested. He had no idea. Another couple of stories I have is, and they're Saskatchewan stories. And when Brian Trotchy was young and he was playing, he played with Tiger Williams when he was 16. And Brian quit. He quit playing. He was playing with the Broncos. And at Christmas time, he quit. He wasn't going to play anymore. And it's the 27th of December, and it's 7 in the morning, and Val-Marie's probably an hour out of Swift Current. And there's a knock at the door, and there's Tiger Williams at the door, 7 in the morning. He says to Brian's mom and dad, just coming in for breakfast. So he comes in, he sits down. He says to Brian, what are you doing? Brian says, I've had enough, I'm not coming back. And so Tiger talks a little while and he says, well, Brian, you don't have to worry about anything anymore. You're going to be on my line and I'll take care of you for the rest of the year. So Brian went back and Tiger took care of him. And that's a pretty good result. Like, not everybody has that. The Saskatchewan, I feel Saskatchewan has that. I feel that's the way we're made up. That's what we do. And we take care of each other. Another story is Derek Dorsett. Dorsett, he, if you're a pretty good hockey player, you'll make AAA midget when you're 15. Derek couldn't quite make AAA midget when he was 15. And you know the funny thing is, at 16, every midget team in Saskatchewan didn't think he was good enough to play at 16 either. His dad took him to every team. He got cut from every team. Wasn't good enough to play. At 16, you have no chance of playing in the NHL if you can't make AAA midget by 16. He finally makes it at 17. And the thing for him is, well, why did he make it? He made it because he wanted to be a player. More than anything, he wanted to be a player, and he plays hard every night. And, I think you can learn from that. And I think as coaches, a lot of times we'll look at where our players are and we'll go, well, this guy, he's going to be the guy that makes it to the NHL. The Bantam draft's pretty good in the Western Hockey League. They spend good money on guys to evaluate talent. And if I go, well, what round did Tyler Innes get picked in the Bantam draft? He didn't get picked. MacArthur didn't get picked. Joffrey Lupo didn't get picked. Jamie Benn didn't get picked. Don't write your kids off. Don't write them off. If they want it, they can develop. Everybody develops at a different time. Every kid's important when you're going through it and you're working with them and doing it. And I think that the last one I was going to talk about is Dave King. And the one question I had for Dave when he was talking is, Dave, how can you be so passionate all the time about your hockey and about Saskatchewan? Like, whenever he talks about those two things, he's passionate. And my question was just, where do you get the passion from? I don't think anybody in this room, I could go out on a limb and I know that nobody in this room has watched as much hockey as Dave. Dave will watch hockey all the time. He's just an amazing man how he does it. And you can learn from that. You just don't get lucky and be successful. That's how you get successful, is how you work. And for him, it's interesting. Like, I think it was Tarasov was the only coach, the Russian coach Tarasov wanted over there was Dave. He wouldn't let anybody else in. Why was Dave so special? Why would he let him in? And when I played at U of S, we were 3-21 my first year. 3-21. I don't know how we won those 3 games, but we had a good group of guys. We had a good group of guys, but we were 3-21. Dave came in, and after that we went to the national finals 3 years in a row. Final game. Like, how could we change? Like, that's the impact he had. And how did he do it? Like, how did he do that? When we went to Calgary, Dave would drive, the players would fly. He just drove, because then we could take one extra player on the road. That's what he did. Took care of his players. He made it happen. The other story is a passion. I talked a little bit about the passion. We're playing U of A one night, and Dave wasn't very happy with us. We've all talked about the rink inside the rink, that we didn't have anybody in the rink inside the rink. And so we had practice, and he had a big happy face on the ice in practice for us to be in. And that's where we were supposed to be. And he wasn't very happy that, we didn't have anybody in there. So we're down 3-1 to U of A. U of A's got a great team. And we come back to the ice to start the third period, and Dave's been out there in his shoes with the spray paint and painted a happy face on the ice. Like, who does that? like you got to be pretty passionate about your game. You got to love the game. You can't. He wasn't worried about what everybody thought. He was worried about winning and what it would take to win. That's all he was worried about. That's all he could have been thinking about. My first practice, I go to Dave, And Dave doesn't remember this. I remember it so clearly. First practice starts at 4 o'clock. I'm at the rink at 2 probably. I'm always there early. I go on the ice at 4:10. Dave looks at me, kind of wonders what I'm doing. Nothing. Second practice, same thing. I go out at 4:10 again. Dave says to me, Willie, what are you doing? I go, I just don't like warm-ups, Dave. I'll just come out for the regular practice. I just don't like warming up. Dave says, you're going to start liking warm-ups. And I never missed again. And it was his team. It wasn't our team, it was his team. And I think it was Tipper talked about, you got to go after, or Mike maybe talked about it, your players. They got to know who's in charge and how you're going to do it. And it was his team, and we followed him. And we knew where he was going to go and what we were going to do. Another story about Dave is, and it's all this because you learn, is I had a pretty good year with Dave, and in 5 years, I had a pretty good year. Dave and I have never talked about this since that day. So after the year was done, and Dave was going to take over the national team, and I always wanted to play on the Olympic team. Like, I wanted to play. So I come walking in his office, all excited about it, talking about the camp and what we're going to do. And Dave's kind of a little bit uneasy. And I finally catch on, he's not going to invite me to the camp. There's 3 or 4 other guys on our team he's going to invite, but he's not inviting me. And so I kind of wander out of the office pretty quick. And that's what you have to be as a coach. You have to move on sometimes. He knew I wasn't fast enough. I just couldn't, I wouldn't make the team. I couldn't do it. And it wasn't that he didn't respect me as a player or believe in it, but sometimes you have to move ahead. You can't stay there. You got to make hard decisions sometimes. And he was good about it. And the bottom line is you have to move on, and that's what he did. And I think, you know, when I look at all of us, with coaching and that is making a difference. And in Montreal, they have a sign, and I think in Montreal it's where they pass the torch. They pass the torch on. And new people become responsible with the torch. And I think this season you're going to be responsible with your team, with the torch. It's your turn. You have the torch. All those players are trusting you, that you're going to do a good job with them. And I know coaches have made a difference in my life. I know Dave made a difference. And you have an opportunity this year to make a difference in all your players' lives. You can make a difference in their life. And not as a hockey player, but as a person. And that's exciting. If you can, at the end of a practice, if kids can be more confident and feel better about themselves, you've had a great day. One kid. If you focus on one kid, it can make such a difference. So I think that's your challenge for the year. Can your guys come out after the year and be better people and better hockey players? And I think this group, you guys put in your time, and it's great to see, and I really appreciate being able to come back. So.